Hi, I'm Luca, and at the age of 18, I've already delivered speeches in front of 2,000 people. I've competed in public speaking competitions, I've lost, I've won, I've received standing ovations. People have given me compliments and praise, and they've asked me how I do it. So now I help rising leaders deliver high stakes speeches. What I want to focus on in this video today, I'll keep it short, is many people make the mistake of focusing on memorization instead of prioritizing natural fluidity in a speech. And don't get me wrong, I don't think I'll be needing the paper, but I'm not saying don't prepare, and I'm not saying don't memorize your speech. All right? For me, I really like to be in control. And a challenge I faced in the start was unprepared speaking. And that was very uncomfortable for me. And that was a challenge. It was difficult, all right? And in order to get good, I had to just keep throwing myself in the deep end until eventually I learned how to swim, all right? But that's simply because I really, really want to be in control. And I don't like the situation where I'm not in control. I don't know exactly what I'm going to say. With all of my speeches, for me, I've always been someone who prepares a lot. I memorize it word for word, kind of, but I memorize it really thoroughly, 95% and up. All right, I know it really, really well. And for many people, that is a negative. If you just memorize your speech like a robot and you recite it, that is a negative because it doesn't, it makes you look like exactly that, like a robot, like a speech reciter, like some AI, text reader. And that's not what you want. You want to be human. You want to have your own tone and your own voice and your own pitch and your own highs and lows and your own pause. And you want to be you. You want to have your own joke and your own humor, and you want it to all seem natural and effortless, and almost as if you're making up on the spot. And when I deliver a speech and someone asks me, "Did you actually prepare for that?" It looked like you were making some of the stuff up on the spot. When my mom says that, when a friend says that, that brings so much joy to me because that's exactly what I'm going for. I've always been someone who prepares a lot, in like tremendous amount, almost to my detriment. For many people, it's a negative. But something which I've worked on is yes, I prepare, but I make everything seem natural. I make it all seem like it's on the spot. And for many people, it's either you do that and you know your speech front to back, and then you act as if you're thinking, and you act as if the joke is so funny you can barely say it, and you act as if you're making things up on the spot. As you're running, you're simply catching your feet beneath you, or you do bullet points and you're actually making up on the spot. Okay, pick your poison here. For me, bullet points has always been a bit risky. But when it's time to do an unprepared speech and you have 30 seconds to prepare, the only thing you can do is bullet point. You need a story, you need to make it up as you go. You need an argument, you need to make it up as you go. That's the best you can do. But if you have a speech 3 weeks down the line, bro, memorize that thing word for word. But you can never make it sound robotic. I had a great teacher helping me with my speech last year, and I had flashcards. And I would be speaking, and I knew it really well. And I kept talking, and I kept holding eye contact with her, with the judge, whoever. And I'm speaking, and I would look at them as I change a flashcard. That's because I was so well prepared. I knew exactly, on what word the flashcard ended and what word the next one began with. So I didn't really need to look. I knew my speech. In other words, I was prepared well enough. So I kept looking at her, and she pointed out, "Dude, that is so weird. That is so AI-like, robotic-like, and don't do that." She said, "Look down at your key cards. It makes you look human. It makes you look like you're actually engaged. It makes you look natural. That's what we want." I remember hearing dating advice. This is slightly off topic. I remember hearing dating advice a few years ago because I wanted to be cool and get a girlfriend. It still hasn't worked, but you get the idea. I wanted to. I was listening to some dating advice, and the guy was saying the secret here is to get super jacked, bro. To go to the gym, to lift, to get jacked, but don't tell anyone that you work out. And I was like, facts. And he said his argument was because you want it to seem natural. You want it to seem like you just naturally have superior genetics and you're just naturally athletic and have a six pack. You know, that's a bit slimy, but to an extent, he's right. We prepared a lot for that speech, memorized the whole thing, wrote it out, but we wanted to seem natural. We wanted to have natural flow. And what this looks like is before you say a joke, you want to almost giggle a bit before you actually say the punchline. For example, I have a story where I was in primary school going to ask the girl I like to be my Valentine. And so we were in our school uniform, and then we had to get dressed into our sports clothes so that we can go do recess or physical activity. So I took my shirt off. I haven't asked her to be my Valentine yet. That was later in the day. This was in the morning. And she looks at me and she says, Luca, you're kind of fat, you know. And in the context of the story, it maybe stuck a bit better and people actually laughed. Trust me. Please believe me, even if it wasn't that funny now. But in that joke, I had two little giggles. That seems really natural. Before you say something, you want to almost look up as if you're thinking, right? So at the end of each story, I always have a realization. And so before I say the realization, I look up and think of it as if I'm actually thinking on the spot. Meanwhile, it's all prepared, but you want it to appear natural and fluid and spontaneous. So how this would look is, in that moment, I realized it wasn't about letting go, but it was about never getting the chance to say goodbye. You know, maybe I'm a bit rusty here, but you get the idea. Look up, you think, you ponder, and then you say your point. You know, another natural thing, no one really holds eye contact with you like this and says a speech, bar for bar. People look around, they think, they wonder. You know, in every conversation, you're not always maintaining eye contact. Same thing with your speech. You want to talk, look around, look at your audience or whatnot. Look at, or unless there's one judge or one board member, or it's an interview and you're speaking to someone. I remember I was in an interview and I had answers prepared bar for bar. Tell me a bit about yourself. I had a whole story, bro. But I didn't just look at them and recite it. I would talk. I would pause. I would act like I'm thinking. I would giggle a bit. And I would look around, talk a bit. And I'm just naturally a really loving, kind, amazing, ambitious person. You know what I mean? I didn't say that. But if you see what I did there is you would talk a bit, you think a bit, you say a few things, looking away, and at the end of your point, for your full stop, for it to land, you look back and you make eye contact. That's a very natural mannerism in conversation. And so you want to focus on things like this in your speech. These are all things you have to take into account. Look away, you speak, and in that moment, okay, maybe not that one. In that moment, I realized it wasn't about letting go. It was about never getting the chance to say goodbye. You see, look around at the end of your point, at the end of your sentence or your paragraph, you channel that energy back into the observer. These are all very natural mannerisms which you want to adopt, all right? Especially if you're well prepared, because you can easily make the mistake of looking robotic. And as soon as people see that, they're like, yeah, you're but like, you're not naturally good, bro. You're not that good. You don't got no talent, you know? So yeah, people only really appreciate hard work if you're bad. You know, like if you suck at something and they see you putting hard work, then you're dope. Then you're Rocky and everyone likes you. But like, if you're already good and you're putting in hard work, it's like, bruh, screw you. And that's why you got to see him a bit like Roger Federer, dude. He's dope. He's good. He's amazing. He don't care. He's just naturally good like that. Not really, but you get the idea here. I don't know if that was a strong argument to make, but people often prioritize memorization over natural fluid flow. All right. So I understand if you really want to be prepared, because I am also someone who really wants to be prepared, but don't let that ever come at the expense of natural fluidity. And if that means having to make bullet points so that you're literally not prepared, you just have a few bullet points to guide your brain and your thoughts and your ideas, so be it. Experiment with both ends of the spectrum here, all right? Try both, record yourself speaking, look at the tape, see what works better. Maybe try meet in the middle a bit. You understand what I'm saying? For example, most of my speeches follow a similar structure. Start off with a story, then I transition into my message, my data, my study, my, the concrete information. With the story, I kind of know the story because I already lived it. I've already done it. I don't need to know it word for word, bar for bar. I can kind of just say, oh yeah, story, wake up, go to school, teddy bear in my backpack, Valentine's Day. And I know what I'm saying. So that's already a very natural flow. I know, oh yeah, I know that story. I know what I need to say. I know how it looks and what the course of events looks like and how it plays out. And I know what to say. I know what joke to make. Right? So that's what I mean. You can meet in the middle. But yeah, this video has already been going on for far too long. Don't prioritize preparation, but don't let memorization be the downfall of your natural human-like character, because that's what we want. Everyone can memorize stuff and say it like a robot, but if you really want to be eloquent and charming and charismatic, you need a bit of humanness to it. So that's the video. I hope you've got some value from this. That's been me, your boy, Luca Bazooka, and I hope to see you in the next one. Take care.